Hello everyone, and welcome to our little show here on building. Tonight's show is going to be on building and moving prims and adjusting your prims. So the first thing we're going to do is create a prim. You right-click on the ground in front of you, then you click on Create, and then you'll see a little magic wand appear. And then you touch the ground. That would be a left click now, to create your prim on the ground. You'll notice that after you've created the prim, if you've still hung on to it, there will be an edit box that pops up on your screen. This box gives you all of the features and all of the things that you can do with this prim. We're going to only scratch the surface of the things you can do with the prim tonight, but we are going to be using this box, so you're going to want to be prepared to look at it and use it. Along the top of the box, you'll see a bunch of little tabs there. There's a General tab, an Object tab, a Features tab, a Texture tab, and a Content tab. The one that we'll be mainly staying with will be the Object tab, so click on Object. Now you'll see a whole bunch of numbers there, but the main and important ones that we want to look at are the X, Y, and Z axes. Those are actually axes, and you'll notice that the little handles that appear on your box as you're editing it are also in those same colors. So X means back and forth, okay, and then Y means side to side, and you can actually grab those little handles and move your prim back and forth and side to side. Give that a try. Side to side, red is back and forth, and then the third axis is the blue one, the Z axis, and there it goes up and down. Now just be careful, don't go putting it underground or anything, but you can just move the prim up and down, and then side to side, and then back and forth. So there you go. That's how prims are moved. So the next thing that we're going to do is move from the Move button, the radial button that you'll see selected at the top there. You'll see Move, Rotate, and Stretch. So we're going to use the second button there, which is Rotate. So I want you to actually click on the little Rotate radial button, and that will put 3 rings around your prim. Notice that those rings are still in those familiar 3 colors that represent the familiar 3 axes. So now you can rotate your prim on 3 axes. So you can use your blue ring to rotate the prim around. Okay, go ahead and do that. And then you can use your red one to rotate it around in a different direction. And then you can use the green one to rotate it around in a third direction. Okay, on 3 different axes. So you can end up with a prim that's turned on its edge or on its side, and that's great for certain types of building or certain types of applications that you may require. Okay, so the next thing, the third thing you can do with a prim is stretch it. Stretch it in all different ways and directions. So on the radial button at the top there, I want you to click the third radial button, which is called Stretch. Now you'll see your prim, and you'll see the familiar red, green, and blue handles appear on the different sides, but you'll also see a new set of handles that are represented by little white squares or little white handles. The white handles will stretch all, so to speak. What they'll do is they'll stretch all 3 of the axes in the direction or in the size that you would like it to go. But if you only want to move, or not move, if you only want to stretch your prim in a certain way, then you can grab a handle and stretch it. So let's try the blue handles, and I want you to stretch your prim long and thin. Okay, and then I want you to grab a red handle and stretch it in a different direction, just a little bit. And then I want you to stretch grab a green handle, but push it in to make the prim more flat. Okay, so now you just created a board. Congratulations. So now you've learned how to resize the prim, but now you can stretch it in all directions and just make it bigger or larger in the same shape or form that it's already in. So grab one of the white handles on the side, and you can just make it very, very small or make it very, very large. So the maximum size that a prim can be, at least at this time in SL, when this video was made, is 10 by 10 by 10. That's 10 meters by 10 meters by 10 meters. That's the maximum size. That's pretty big. And so just remember that everything in Second Life is made of prims, with the exception of only a few other little items. Everything in Second Life is made out of prims. And prims are just simply the building blocks of SL. That's all they are. They're building blocks, they're containers, and they take up space. They represent space. Then there are also textures or pictures. And textures and pictures represent, or think of them as, bandwidth, meaning you have to download a photo or an image, just like on the internet. To download a photo or an image or a video file or a music file, you actually have to use bandwidth to download it. So think of a picture that you would put on this, and we're going to do that in a few minutes, as bandwidth. The third part of it is scripting. And you can make your prims do things. Somebody touches it, it has a reaction. Someone clicks on it or collides with it or whatever, it has a reaction because it has a script in it. Now, the thing about scripts is that they react server-side, meaning that on the sim server, where this sim is located, it feeds from that. It gets its energy from that. So it's like running a whole bunch of teeny-weeny little tiny programs. And you know what happens on your own home computer when you try and run too many programs at once. It makes your computer slow and laggy, and the performance goes way down, and it uses up too much memory and too much processor power. The exact same thing happens here. If you have a sim that has almost no scripts on it at all, everything will run very smoothly and very nicely. But if you have a sim that is packed full of scripts, that's a whole bunch of teeny-weeny little programs that are running, and it slows down the sim. Any request that you make to the sim for movement, for building, for inventory, for whatever, all of a sudden you're moving very, very slowly. So the three things in SL to remember are prims, which represent space, the building blocks. Okay. Number 2 is textures or pictures, which represent bandwidth, meaning that you have to download that bandwidth or use that bandwidth to get those pictures or those images. The third thing is scripts, and that's all server-side. So if you put a script in something and you make it do something, it takes up resources on the sim, and everyone on the sim will feel that if you do it. Now, tiny scripts don't do much, but a whole bunch of tiny scripts, it's like being bitten by a million mosquitoes. Eventually you're going to die, and you're going to get all your blood sucked up. Okay? So that's it for the prims. Next, we're going to do some actual building with the prims. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is delete this prim. Sometimes you have to trash certain items, and you need to be able to know how to delete them. You can delete things from your inventory as well as from in-world, as long as they're your own items. Generally, you cannot delete something that doesn't belong to you for good reason. So, here's your prim in front of you. You select the prim, and then you go to in my case, in an older viewer, it would be the More menu, and then Delete. In the case of the newer 2.0 viewer, it's going to be a little bit different. And on the video in front of you right now, you'll be seeing it being performed in the 2.0 viewer, the deletion of your prim. So the next thing that we're going to do is actually create an object, made out of multiple prims. And a very simple way to do that is to create something simple like a table. So if we were going to create a table, a four-legged table, how many prims would we need? Well, the answer is 5. 1 for each leg, that's 4, plus the top. So let's res a fresh prim on the ground and create our table legs. So go ahead and do a create, and then left click to create your prim. Now before you stretch it, here's one of the things we want to take care of first. In the edit box, top right hand side, there is a tick box there called stretch both sides. Do you see it? Okay, called stretch both sides. Untick that box, because if you leave it ticked, the stretch will occur in both directions at the same time. It's a very handy tool, but we don't want it to do that. We only want it to stretch in one direction, the direction that we pull the handle in. Okay, so untick that box. Now tick the stretch radial button, and then pull, using perhaps the blue handle, pull your prim tall. Okay, tall and thin. And then use your red and green handles to make it more or less thinner and square, like a tall table leg would be. Make sure it's about waist high. Now you'll also see the white handles there. That would be to stretch and move the prim all in one fell swoop, all in all directions. We don't want to quite do that yet, okay? So just stick to the colored handles, the blue, red, and green, and just make it about waist high, and that's your first of 4 table legs. Now, how would you make an exact copy of that? Well, you could res 4 individual prims and then try and resize them, but they're not going to be the exact same size, and it's going to be a pain in the butt. How can you make a copy of that prim nice and easy? Well, here's how. Edit the prim, then hold down your shift key and drag. And look, it's magic. It creates another copy of that prim. Then release your shift key. Now, do it again in the other direction. And then do it again back in the other direction. So now you've created 4 corners or 4 legs. And you should be all good to go. Okay, and if you mess it up, don't worry. You can always come back and fix it later, or you can delete that one leg that you messed up, and you can fix it. Okay, so don't worry about getting them exactly aligned. There's techniques for doing that too, but we're not worried about that today. Right now, we're just trying to get 4 legs made that are exactly the same. Okay? The next part is to make the table top, and this is fairly easy as well. So you're going to res a fresh prim on the ground. So go ahead and hit create and create a fresh prim. Now you're going to stretch that prim big and flat, right? Like a tabletop. So stretch it approximately the size of the table. Again, it does not have to be perfect. Don't worry about that. Okay? Just try to get it pretty much about the same. And use your camera, pan and zoom and tilt and rotate to look around and see as you're building. One of the most well thought out and often used and very often missed nice things about SL is you can go Alt, left click, and whatever you do, whatever you left click on when you go Alt left click, that becomes the center of your world. So if you use your pan and rotate camera movements, you'll rotate around that object. It's really, really handy, especially for building. And if you use your zoom wheel or your wheel on your mouse, you'll actually zoom in and out to that point, which is also very, very handy. Okay? So now you click on position, or in your case it's called the move button, the radial button, and you raise the tabletop up, just like a construction set here, and you're going to slide it over into position, and you're going to mount it right on top of those 4 legs. And just, you can see that on mine here, the legs are kind of popping out the top, so you just want to make sure that you raise it up just enough So the legs are kind of buried in the tabletop a little bit, but not sticking out. Okay, looks pretty good so far. And you can rotate around and just kind of say, yeah, that's pretty close. If you want to, you can edit the tabletop a little bit and stretch one side in just to kind of even out your little rectangle or square tabletop. Okay? Again, it does not have to be beautiful. This is just for testing purposes. So now, the next thing that I want you to do is color the legs. And again, we're just doing this to teach you how to color things, so don't worry about the look of this thing. Each of the 4 legs, I want you to color a different color. We're going to tint them, that's what it's called. So select your first leg and go to the Edit menu, and then click on the Texture tab. There's a tab there along the top, that I think it's the 4th one across, called Texture. And you can see there's a wood texture there. That's that plywood texture, the familiar texture that you see. But there's also another box there called Color. Click right in the middle of that color box, and up pops a color palette. So now you can make this first leg red. So just select red, and you can see mine has just turned red. Select the second leg now and make it green. Let's stick to primary colors. Select the next leg and make it blue. Select the 4th and last leg and make it yellow. So now you have 4 legs, each different colors, and you close your window, your editing window, and you're all set. Pretty cool, eh? So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a photo. So, a photo. Taking a photo in SL is not really difficult. And again, here it does not have to be beautiful. You're just taking a photo for the sake of taking a photo. So zoom in on yourself with your wonderful table, and then hit Control-Shift-S on your keyboard. And that will take a snapshot of your screen and put it up on the screen for you. Or actually put it in a little window. It'll cost you 10 linden to do this. So if you don't have 10 linden, don't worry about it. Don't use a photo. Okay, so go ahead and pay the 10 linden to get your photo, and it should take your 10 linden and then pop the picture up on the screen for you. So what you're going to do now is simply take that photo and drag the photo right out of your screen, right on top of the tabletop. So now I pull it over and I just drop it right on there. A little arrow pops up for me to be able to move it, and you'll see that now the photo that I took is represented or is shown on the tabletop in real time. That's pretty cool, isn't it? So that's how you add a photo to something. Now, the next step would be, after adding the photo, if you wanted to tint that photo, make it lighter or darker, you can select that particular item and you can make it full bright. There's a little button there, a little, this is on the texture menu, texture tab. You can click that little button and it makes it full bright, so it kind of backlights the photo. That's kind of handy. You may not like that effect, and basically what it does is it makes it affected by the sun. So if it's full bright, it is not affected by the sun if there's sun out. If it's non-full bright, then it will be affected by the sun, meaning if the sun shines on it and the sun has a yellow haze, it'll kind of tint your item a little bit yellow too. You can also tint your tabletop any color you wish. So you can have this photo here, but you can give it a yellow cast by clicking yellow from the color palette and making it yellow. So now the tabletop that I just created has a bit of jaundice going on. There we go. So the next thing we're going to do is take our 5 prims, our individual prims here. Right now they're just teetering, they're staying up by themselves like building blocks. But now we have to glue them together or weld them together, okay, into a table so that they don't come apart and they're all one object. So what we're going to do is select each of the 4 legs, and then finally in the last position or the last select, we'll select the tabletop. So let's start with the red leg here. So select the red leg and then hold down your Shift key on your keyboard. Then touch, that is touch as in left click, the green leg, then touch the blue leg, then touch the yellow leg. So now all 4 of those legs will now become highlighted on your screen. And you'll see them there ready to go. You could even move them or edit them, but don't do that right now. Okay, then you'll see the tabletop is not yet selected. As you select the last item, you'll see that it will be highlighted in yellow, and it will be your primary or your root prim, meaning it's going to be the master prim of this whole bunch of prims that we're creating in this object. Okay, so now in the Object tab of your building window, you'll see a little button that says Link. Look for that little link button. Link and usually an unlink button. Go ahead and press the link button. So you press link, and now what happens is all 4 legs are now welded to the tabletop, and the tabletop turns yellow as the primary, but the rest of the legs turn blue. Okay, so now if you let it go, that is release and close the building box, you won't be able to really tell, but it's all linked together. It's all one piece. If you were to move that table, and go ahead and do that actually, just move it back and forth. Select the table as a unit or as a group here. You don't even have to group it, just select it. And now when you move your table, all 4 legs and the tabletop all move together at the same time as a single unit because they're all glued together now. Okay, you just glued them by linking them. Okay, pretty cool. So now you've created a linked object. So one quick little thing here that you should look at is edit the item, then go to the General tab on the item for the item, and then in the sort of the mid to upper right hand corner below the little check boxes there, it says Selected Objects 1, Primitives 5. And what it's basically saying is you have one object with 5 prims. It's telling you how many prims are in that particular object. So if when you're watching this video, if you're in another room, you can select any number of items. Like for instance, behind me over there, one of those chairs. If I was to select one of these chairs over here, it is made up of 6 primitives in one object. The umbrella behind me is 9 primitives with one object, and the big sectional couch there is 31 prims all in one object. So you see, it can have any number of prims. Now the maximum number of prims you can have is 250, I believe it is. It's either 250 or 256 in a single colligated or collated item. Okay, that's how many you can have in a single linked object. And the other thing is, objects can only be linked together when they are close enough, like within about 20 meters or so. I'm not even sure exactly of how far it is, but for whatever you're doing, it doesn't really matter. Okay? So that's it for linking your table together into one single object. So we've created our beautiful, lovely table here, and now we need to name it so that we can find it. So it's not just named object. We want to name this thing. So click on your table and edit it, and then look in the build box, and you'll see you can name your object. Right now it's called the default, which is object. Well, you don't want everything called object. You want to call it your name table. So for me, it's going to be called Madam April's Table. Okay, and if you wanted to, you can also, in the line below, there's a line for description, and you could put in there some kind of other information, like created for my for the video on January 4th, 2011. Okay? You could put information like that in there. So the reason why it's so important to name your items or your objects that you create is when you take them into your inventory, you may have 12 or 15,000 or even more items in your inventory. And if it's named object, you won't know what it is. So this helps you to manage your items in inventory. And that's exactly what we're about to do. We're going to take this sucker back into our inventory right now. Here we go. So you click on the table, and then you select Take. And poof, it's gone. But you'll see it open up or pop up in your inventory. Probably your inventory window has opened up now. And in the inventory, also likely highlighted right now, is your table, the way that you named it. And so now you can see it in your inventory. It doesn't count for anything in your inventory. It doesn't count as a prim. It doesn't count as a script. It doesn't count as a texture. It doesn't count as anything in your inventory. It doesn't exist. Only virtually. Now what you're going to do is re-res that table back into the world again. All right? So now take your table and just pull it right out of your inventory and drop it on the ground. And whammo, there it appears right in front of you, your table. But look, there's still a table in your inventory. Oh my goodness, could this be a copy of your table? Absolutely, that's exactly what it is. It's because you created this item. So anything that you create completely and totally on your own is pretty much full permissions for you. That means that you can make as many copies of it as you like, and no one can stop you. So that's a good thing, but it can also be a bit of a pain in terms of managing it, because now if you take this table back into your inventory, go ahead and take it. Now you have two Madame April's tables, or your tables, in your inventory. There's two of them there. Now, because it's not a highly valuable item, you could just blow it away. You already have a good copy of it, but you may have changed the second copy or made it better in some sort of way. You might have changed the colors or the configuration or resized it, and it's a better version. So what you should do is rename your table, this new version of your table, in some other way. So you should say version 2 or V2 or 1.0 or whatever, table 1.0. Name it something different so that you can make it distinctive in your inventory, so that you can always find it and grasp which one is the most recent version. Okay? That's very, very important. So that really kind of wraps up building. That is the simplest way to speak to you about building, and how you can take an item into your inventory and how you can produce it back into world. There are lots more things, endless number of things you can do with prims, resizing them, selling them, creating them, scripting them, texturing them, resizing them, giving them to your friends, all kinds of different things that you can do. And it's just absolutely amazing. Everything in SL is made with prims. These are the building blocks of SL. Everything you see, pretty much everything you see in SL, is created with using prims. Okay? So that's it for now. And the next part of our lesson, part 2 of this lesson, will be using prims on yourself. Like, for instance, your hair, or your shoes, or your collar, or some other piece of an object that you attach to your avatar, and it stays on your avatar. So there is another kind of prim, or another kind of object, and those are worn objects, objects that you wear on your avatar. Now, these are not clothing items. They may be part of a clothing set, but they are not clothing items or clothing layers. They are actual prims that are part of your clothing and part of your attire that you're wearing. you can mainly tell them apart because they're not attached or layered or painted onto your body. They are sticking out from your body, and they can also be moved just like the prims that we were talking about earlier. So for instance, if you look at me, you'll see I have my crop under my arm. That is a prim item. I have my collar. I have my hair, which I am not taking off for you people. Then down below I have my belly ring. And so we're going to use our belly rings as our example items for this demonstration of how to move and adjust an item on your body. Okay, so just remember that an item that is resed in world is created or resed in relation to the entire sim. Okay, so it's at a certain point in the sim, you move it around, and it moves that millimeter or that centimeter or that meter around in one direction or another. When a prim is attached to your body, to your avatar, it is measured only within the parameters of your actual avatar, and it is only measured from the center of your avatar. So all of the parameters or all of the coordinates that you see are measured from the center of your avatar. So if you want to edit things on your body, let's say your belly ring is not quite right. It's not in your belly. It's not in your belly button. You want it to make it better or to adjust it a bit and make it look better. Now let's talk about how to move and manipulate that. So we're going to use these wonderful, lovely orange pose stands here in front of us. So you get on the pose stand and you stand on it. Pose stands are handy because they keep you still while you're trying to look at something or manipulate something. However, in later versions of SL, if you actually edit an item on your body, you will go into appearance mode, which basically puts you in this kind of a T pose, and so it kind of puts you in this pose so that you can go ahead and make the adjustments that you need to. So now I want you to zoom in on your, let's say you're wearing an item right now, a prim item. And so that would be, let's say, a belly ring or a cuff or a bracelet or a collar or something like that, okay? So what you want to do is zoom in on it. Remember we did Alt left click before? So if you do Alt left click, that makes that item, that thing, the center of your world, and it makes it so much easier to use and to follow around. So you just cam around the item, and you can use your zoom wheel to zoom in nice and close on that item and get nice and tight so you can actually see what's going on. So I'm zoomed in, for me, I'm zoomed in close on my crescent belly ring that is in my belly button. Now it's positioned quite nicely, but let's say it went on out of position. So I'm going to click on it and edit it. Very same thing as what we did before. It is done with with the edit box. But now any coordinates you're going to see are with relation to the center of your avatar. So we're going to as a demonstration, we're going to move it to the right and then to the left, so you can see that it's moving to the right. That would be probably for you would be the green arrows and the green handles, and then you can move it to the left, and then you can move it in and out with the red button. Now here's the thing with the red handles. You can also potentially push it right into your body, like inside of your body, which can be a problem, and it may or may not try and pop back out depending on how Lyndon has handled things. But basically, if you try and push it into your body, that's fine if you want it to be in your body, but most people don't want it to be inside their body. So just make sure that you don't let it go in there. Do not let go of the item while it's inside of your body, or else it's going to be like real life. An item is stuck inside your body, and someone's going to have to help you to get it out of there. And there are a lot of little tricks to try and get the item out of there, but for now, do not let it go inside your body. Okay? So, just like in real world, when you res the prim in world, you can move it on 3 axes. You can move it side to side, in and out, and up and down. Okay, so now take that object and move it very carefully and slowly right onto the correct position for your belly button so that it looks good. And most makers of items, if you're using something that somebody else created, a belly ring or whatever, they'll make it so that it's meant to be worn on a specific position or on a specific attachment point. And so when they do that, what happens is it will look good or will look best on that particular attachment point. So, for instance, an item that was meant to be a belly ring wouldn't necessarily look good as a nose ring because it's not set up that way. It's not set up to look good as a nose ring, but you could conceivably wear it as a nose ring if you really, really wanted to. Okay, so now you position that up and down, sideways, in and out until you get it in the right position, and then you let go or you close the editing box. Remember, just as we did with the in-world prims, you can also rotate the item. Please do that very carefully. You can rotate it on any of the 3 axes, and you can, just like we did, move it in and out. And you can also, in some cases, depending on the way the thing has been manufactured, you may be able to modify it, meaning stretch it or make it bigger or smaller. But of course, you don't want a belly ring that is a meter wide. It would look pretty silly. But you might want some other type of item, like a sword or a weapon or a belt or a skirt, a mini skirt or something like that. That's a prim skirt. You may want them to be moved, and they're half a meter large in size. So they're a fairly big item, and they might be attached to the attachment point, which is your belly or your hip or your spine or your chest. And they all move in slightly different ways, so they all look good for those particular items that are attached to those attachment points, so they don't go back and forth out of kilter with the way that your avatar moves. Okay, so that's basically it. So you want to position the item in a nice way so that it looks good on you. So now, when we jump off of our pose stand, so we hit stand up, and we get turned back around, because it kind of set us off the wrong way there. We get turned back around. Now what you should see is the belly ring positioned very nicely and looking good on my belly button.